We're here with Coach Alex Jensen of the Runnin Utes, and I wanted to start off this conversation with some pictures for you.
Oh, wow.
Got to slide these over.
Oh, yeah.
So our first meeting was when this is, I think, 28 years ago. So this is this is the summer after
Yep.
the national championship game, and thought about. I mean, I've watched these, and you're doing this symbol here, and I remember you saying, "All I need is that much space to get my shot off, and once it's off, it's going in," which it proved to be true. But this was my first Alex Jensen moment, and so my question for you is: you've been in what we would call the sports light for your entire life, through high school, college, and now. What is that? I don't know if it's pressure or maybe it's a privilege to every time somebody interacts with you to kind of give them that positive experience that they'll remember years down the road.
Well, I've never taken myself that seriously, I don't think. And, and I was like in those pictures, I was, at times I was that kid. I used to go to those camps and, and I haven't necessarily thought about it too much. I think it's like anything, whether it's in sports or anything, hopefully people have nice interactions with you and they don't have anything bad to say. But no, basketball was always easy because it was something that I've always enjoyed since I was little.
No, that's great. And again, thank you for 28 years later. This kid gets to see his childhood idol, and it's just great.
Yeah, styles have changed.
They have. The shirts have gotten a little bit tighter these days. Even as early in high school, you were often described as an elite defender. When did that kind of come into your mindset of that you wanted to be an elite defender?
No, I think I've always had good coaches, and I think it's, just always being competitive. I had an older brother and a younger brother. And the fear of you were never good enough, but defense to me, it was always anybody can do it. Not everybody can dunk or shoot but defense is just kind of like a desire or a will to do. And I think, fortunately, like I said, my circumstances growing up made me competitive and it's easy to be competitive on the defensive end.
Do you think that's something that can be taught to kids in high school and in college at that point? Is that defensive mindset, or is that something that kind of is in that person individually?
That's a good question. I think it's kind of, I don't know if it's innate within every person, but I think, as we recruit players, right, whether or draft players in the NBA and in college, I don't think it's something that you can totally change. As people get to that point in their career, right, in their late teens, early 20s, but I think it's something that you get earlier. And I'm not saying there haven't been players that have become good defenders, but you can kind of see that they have it in them from an early stage.
And I think that too. I'm my 11-year-old kid now, right? I can teach him where to be and where to go, but some of it's just, are you going to do it, and do you have that desire to push through things?
Yeah, no, like I said, defense it's a mindset, and it's a, Majerus used to always say that, anybody can do it, just a matter of wanting to.
Yeah. This was a question from the internet, so I put out that we're interviewing you. So we have some fan questions of who's the most difficult person you had to guard, or one of the most difficult people you had to guard in your playing?
Good question. I remember my freshman year here at the U, I had to guard Keith Van Horn most days, so that was really tough. I'm trying to think. Vince Carter in the Final Four was good back in the day, and Courtney Alexander at Fresno State had a really good game against us here. But I had good teammates, and that's another thing. I think I had my job. I wasn't supposed to let a particular player score a certain way, right? And I knew where my help was going to be, so it truly was a team effort. But yeah, I think those guys were good. Keith was hard. Every day Keith was hard. And then, at times guarding when we play pickup, Andre's, I'd probably say the best player I've played with or against. But yeah, I think those guys, pretty good players and not the easiest to guard. And I remember Lamar Odom had a good game. We lost that game when he was at Rhode Island and Chicago. He shot the ball well. So, I've been lucky to guard a lot of good players.
Yeah, that's awesome. Same person who asked that question asked, is Andre Miller as cool as he seems? And what is he up to?
Yeah, he's cooler. Yeah. He's cooler. I always take, Andre, I'm obviously biased, but Andre, I encourage everybody, go look at the all-time assist leaders in the NBA. I think he's 12th. and there's guys below him that are in the Hall of Fame. And I think, like I said, I'm biased, but I think Andre's easily one of the most underrated players of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved him too. You were 68-4 in high school with a state championship, Mr. Basketball, all of these accolades that we could spend a lot of time on. What was, I guess, the recruiting pitch that kind of sold you on coming to the University of Utah? What could they offer, and not money, but like what could they offer you in terms of your playing experience that was different than what anyone else was offering you?
I think like a lot of kids, like growing up watching, especially the NCAA tournament, they used to have it here, I think, every couple of years, the Huntsman, the first 2 rounds. And I remember going, and I just wanted to play in the tournament. And I know, I grew up a BYU fan, hardcore for a lot of years. And, the Utah teams with Walter Watts, Josh Grant, Craig Ridehouse, Jimmy Soto. I mean, if you remember when UNLV won the championship, they played him in the Sweet 16. And they played him played him the best throughout the whole tournament. And then, going to practices, and, even it probably scared me watching the practices at different universities, watching them here. I knew it would get me better, and I'd have a chance to play in the tournament. So it kind of, and Utah recruited me probably the most consistent early on. So it was kind of it wasn't a extremely difficult decision, and, I had great timing.
Yeah. Was it mostly Majerus, or was it the staff? Who was mostly involved in that recruiting process?
No, it was a lot of, Jeff Judkins, who's, his camp, the pictures you showed, his camp. But, Donnie Daniels came to a game when I was a sophomore in Layton. I remember that. Everybody barely remembers the first time. But I think it was a concerted effort. Coach Majerus. My mom's uncle, my great uncle, was coached at East with Kerry Rupp. So I used to go to camps there, Dale Simons. And my first unofficial, I came up here with him. And it was, I didn't enjoy it. I signed early, I wanted to get over with. But it was pretty clear, I think, what the best decision was.
Coach Doug Meacham, he's now at Harriman High School. He asked, what role did the assistant coaches play in kind of buffering and developing the culture here?
Oh, good question. Yeah, Doug. Doug was here, so we know. But it was kind of a genius. I don't think it was done on purpose. But Majerus, he was such a good coach. There was just naturally a bonding for everybody else to survive and excel. If that makes sense. So every relationship I have through Coach Majerus is actually a really close one. Mm-hmm. Because whether it's a teammate and you took your turns on getting a lot of sprints or getting yelled at in practice, or even when I coached with him, it was people it really had to come together. So and the assistant coaches we had were great, because they were somebody you had your rough day, you kind of bonded together to survive through all the long practices and everything. So they had a lot to do with it.
Coach Judkins did ask, what do you remember from the Lake Powell trips, the horseback rides, the firesides, all of the off the court stuff?
Yeah, no, my favorite memory was we went to Juddy's. He had the young men and play basketball, and I remember you talk about a competitive guy.
Yeah,
and he was a 12-year-old kid. He blocked his shot out of bounds, and we're like, Juddy, he's like, you shouldn't have shot it. But no, that was I was just planning out our summer as a team, and it's a new team, and unfortunately, that's kind of the spot we're in with sports and college sports. Like, you'd like to have some continuity, but that was a great thing because, like myself, a lot of us learned to water ski with Juddy when we got here. And whether it was at East Canyon, and then the team would go down to Lake Powell and get a bunch of tall guys who had never done water sports. And as everybody who's gone to Lake Powell knows, it's a great ship and bonding. So, there was things I was thinking about doing with our guys, like off the basketball court, which helps. But yeah, no, those were some of the most memorable, great memories. And there was a lot of, people and families here at the U that are, entrenched in, donating and a part of it that you got to know them. So it was great. That was that connection with the with the community, which I think's been lost.
He also asked how many shots do you think you've taken with him, but I don't know that there's a right answer to that.
Infinite.
Yeah, a lot of shots.
Infinite, many. Yes.
Another insider brought up the fact that Coach Majerus never yelled at you, except. Would you be able to finish that sentence?
Well, I have my opinions, except for not shooting. He would get on me for not shooting at times. But
the other one he said when you were quiet, when you wouldn't talk.
Oh, well, that was, it's funny because as I went throughout this year, we had a quiet team, and that was, you couldn't be quiet with Majerus. I'd say almost nobody was quiet because you're running sprints, so like you would learn to yell. But no, I had my share too.
Yeah.
I should have my share too. But I think it was easy for me. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I just did it as hard as I could.
All of this is kind of setting this up of, okay, that was your recruiting process and coming to the University of Utah and the assistant coaches and the culture and the head coach. Now you're in that seat. And so what does that look like from your perspective of what can you offer the kids coming to the University of Utah? Again, I'm not talking money and NIL stuff. I'm just that experience to lure them here in a way.
It's a good question because a lot of the kids now, they don't remember growing up and watching Utah or them being good. So, the example I'd use, it's the same reason I think I came here and my staff came here. I think that resonates. It's authentic because I had a job, my staff, we all had good jobs. Most of us have won everywhere we've been at some level. And we didn't come here to, hit it big and move on, but like we came here to build it. So it's good even, long after we leave. The interesting thing about Majerus is he left Ball State, Utah, and St. Louis, and the team for the next year at least or two was I don't want to say cruise control because the people that took over did a good job, but I think Ball State went to the Sweet 16, Utah went to the second round, I think, the NCAA tournament. St. Louis, they beat Butler 3 times and made it to the second round and lost. Hopefully that's kind of what you build, like something that goes on for a long time.
How do you pick your staff? And then also, how do you delegate? What roles do you delegate to them?
It's interesting. I knew I didn't want to do it different. Like my time coaching staffs have grown, which I don't think is necessarily good. But the first thing I knew coming back that I wanted was a general manager. Like and I think you'll see more and more of that in basketball programs or just athletic departments with the money element. And Wes Wilcox, I didn't think that I was hoping to get a good recommendation from him. I didn't think I would get somebody with his experience, but no, it's a great balance. And then everybody else, I've had a relationship one way with them, one way or another.
Are you actively recruiting high school kids at this point, or with the way that the transfer portal works and everything going on there, is it pretty focused on those who already have experience in some form of college basketball?
Yeah, no, we want to recruit high school kids, and especially locally. And it's interesting because you have those 3 pools of players, right? You have high school, the portal, and then Europe, and it's 3 pretty big groups. And and I don't know exactly how we want to do it, but I think we'd like to do a combination of all those. I've met a lot of coaches that it's just portal, or a lot of teams are heavily into Europe. But I think if you look back on the success of any basketball team in Utah, it's been done with local kids.
And I think I've heard you talk about that too, of kind of getting butts in the seats in a way of the stadium. And that's what I remember. I mean, you were a local guy, and there were several local guys on the team that kind of got their friends and their family members to come watch just because they were local. So it's kind of an interesting balance that you have to weigh.
Yeah, and I feel, I've been away for so long. Like there's a lot of new high schools that I don't remember there being, and I feel like, and I think myself personally, I should do a lot of the recruiting in state, and I have a much better feel for the recruiting in state, and it takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while. You got to learn the underclassmen and whatnot, but Utah's a good basketball state.
For the kids in high school right now, and we'll get to kind of transfer in college, but for high school kids, what really matters to a college coach as you go watch them? These 2 things might sound like big generalizations, but they
they have to enjoy it. They have to love it. And it seems, and everybody will say, I'd have my team raise their hand, like, right, you love playing. But I think love it means there's that competitive part we talked about earlier, like winning, whether you score or you don't score. And, just getting to know them. Do they like to watch basketball? Do they, right? Because I think that kind of ties into they want to be better, but they really have to enjoy it. Because there's a lot of tall kids that just kind of get channeled into it, which is fine. It's not a bad thing, but that was one thing with the people I think that didn't work well with Majerus. And he used to say this, but when he cared more than they did, like that's kind of a problem. And I mean, not that extreme, but you don't want you don't want to coach players that don't care, where you care more than they do.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah, that is hard. What do you think is kind of from that jump from high school to college, a thing that surprises those high school kids the most when they come in and they start playing college basketball initially?
I think it's just everything's bigger, if that makes sense. Because you're a high school kid. You look now, especially with the portal and players getting a lot of years, like the age is kind of gone up. And there's a huge difference between an 18-year-old and a 20, 21, or even a 23, 24. Like it's just, it's kind of out of your control. I mean, now there are some freshmen that are physically ready, but I think just the patience, because there's a big jump between just mature-wise, like body-wise, I think, with an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old.
For those now moving into those who maybe are playing JUCO or they're playing at other Division I schools, is it the same thing that sticks out to you from their playing experience as what it would be for a high school kid to stick out to you, or does it start to shift a little bit? Meaning like the love of the game, or is there more?
I think it's funny because I've always kind of felt that way, but now that I've been here for a year, I think no matter what level, like do they enjoy it, right? Do they come early? Do they do stuff on their own? Do they? Unfortunately, it's at too young of an age. I think it becomes kind of like a job, an occupation for kids, instead of you sneak into a church or playground or like you just go play on your own, or do you have your time with your workout guy every couple of weeks, so it's at every level, I think that's an important part of it.
Moving, I mean, you had great experience in the NBA as well, coaching all of those guys, so that is their job. And it's a very serious job there. So how do you manage that love of the game with this is a job? And then it feels like when they get into the NBA, they're kind of very specific roles nowadays, unless you're a superstar. So how did you kind of balance that with the players that came up through the NBA program?
In the NBA?
Yeah.
I think obviously in the NBA, there's a little bit more of accepting your role because it might be different than when you were in college. But it's interesting. Being in Dallas was great because I was around Kyrie Irving and Luka, and it was fascinating whether they had a bump or bruise. But you play a lot of games in the NBA. But if there was ever like for the guys that didn't play a lot or the two-way guys, they would play pickup with with the video guys or whoever you could find out to get 10. They would always play, which was interesting. Which is I think unique, but they love to play.
I think the average fan doesn't understand how good they really are. So how good are the NBA players? I know that's like a crazy question, but like what stands out to you from an NBA player perspective that the average Joe just wouldn't understand?
The size. Like I think the biggest difference in the NBA as opposed to a lot of leagues is just the length, size, and athleticism. Like on a good team, a two guard is, 6'5", long, and very athletic. And then, I mentioned Luka. There's always 5 or 6 guys in the NBA. When you see him up close, you're just like, man, like Jokic he's huge and skilled. And then you have guys like Kyrie. Kyrie's the most skilled guy I've ever been around. Like he's not that big, he's not the fastest, but he works on his game. Like he there's nothing he ever does in a game that he has not practiced for hours. That was fun to witness.
That's an interesting point you make of what he hasn't practiced for hours. Going back to kind of the high school or even college guys, where should they focus their practice efforts Is that a skills trainer? Is that a 5-on-5 going to a church with their buddies? Like, what is the best way for them to develop their skill set for the real games that matter?
Now, a skills coach or a trainer, it's not a bad thing, but like you get better playing. Like with anything, whether it's video games, another sport, it's school, like you have to do it. Like you can go in a gym and get all the cones and pads that you want, but if you don't translate it to like actually playing, then like you have to play. And I'm just kind of amazed the lack of just where you go get your friends and you go play 2-on-2, 3-on-3. Like you've got to play. Yeah, where you call your own fouls, you get in your own scuffles, you figure it out for yourself. There's nobody to blame. You face little adversity.
Do you have any personal pickup rules of like defense calls fouls, or what are the like little rules that you have if you play?
No, game point was always a hard one. Like that if you hard fouled, you got to earn it. So and that was the beauty. We used to play in hyper, and if you lost, you had to sit. So like you kind of learn how to be competitive before you actually get on the court.
Do you get in and play with your guys at all at this point?
Do I?
Yeah.
No, a couple times I do. That's kind of gone down. I used to love it early coaching because that was easier for me to coach, I think, when you start to sweat, because I think when you start to play, you start to, get competitive. But I think those days are gone. I'm terribly afraid of, I've been lucky to avoid major injuries now, but now's not the time to hit one.
I'm an assistant high school coach, so I'm just there trying to help. And one thing that I've noticed is that it's easier for me to feel what's going on than to teach it. And then it's easier to teach it than to enforce it. So how have you gone about that in your coaching career of when you first started out of, okay, you're a player, I can feel it and I kind of conceptually understand it, but now I'm teaching a skill, which is a little bit different. And then now I have to enforce the correct execution of that skill.
Yeah, no, and it's good because I think that's changed a lot. And, Majerus used to always say that, if you went and watched somebody's practice, like you should leave thinking, okay, knowing a couple things that they do, whether you call it the makeup of the team or, but like that's what they do. Like that's, I admire, Kelvin Sampson at Houston and what he's done. Like I think he started at Montana Tech and worked his way up, but he's won wherever he's gone. But like there's a specific style of basketball they play. And they recruit to it, and basketball's kind of lost that. When I was growing up, the Big East was like big, tall, physical, low scoring. The Pac-12 was kind of more fast-paced. The SEC had great talent, and they had great teams. And and then in the Midwest, you had, swing in Wisconsin, the offense. You had identities. Now that's kind of lost. That makes even in the NBA, it used to be like that. But I think you have to start with the things that you can do every day, whatever it is that you're going to guard something a particular way. You can't let up on those, and I think that's where your identity as a team comes from. And now in the era of nobody wants to call it pay to play, but it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how college basketball evolves. But there's two languages everybody speaks, and that's money and playing time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the, playing time, that's what you have control over as a coach.
What is the style you hope to have here?
Since I've been back, if you look back at all the basketball teams, Jazz, the good ones, BYU, Utah State, I think there's been a overachieving defensive toughness, if that makes sense. Like even now, like it's stars, I always say that, like stars are raised here kind of, they don't come here, if that makes sense. But no, just like I think a tough team, smart and tough and unselfish.
Does that get tough to manage with the ability to have them transferring in and out all the time, and they aren't with your program potentially for 4 or 5 years, it's for 1 year, and they may have come from a system that doesn't have the exact same principles?
Yeah, no, it is. It happened in the NBA. My last few years in the NBA, like I think more and more kids had skipped steps, if that makes sense. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the way they go to a year of prep school, a year of college, and then they're in the NBA. They haven't faced any adversity. They haven't been, run sprints for doing it wrong. And, once you get to the NBA and get paid, it's harder for that lesson to be drilled into somebody's mind. But no, I think on the onset when you recruit guys, like you manage the expectations, you tell them how it's going to be, and when they come here, they have to want to be here. That makes sense. It can't be because we pay them the most money or some other reason, but they have to want to be here. I think we've done a pretty good job with that.
What does that pool of potential recruits look like for you size-wise? I mean, because if you go, okay, we're going to go after 100 people, that's kind of spreading you pretty thin. But then if you go, okay, we're going after 10 and not all of them say yes, that also puts you in a bind. So what is the size of the recruiting pool that you and your staff are looking at to fill a team each year?
No, and we try to do our due diligence. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of pools, and whether it's recruiting portal or Europe. And, I think the thing that we kind of knew and we've learned over and over again, and we're doing better at it, is I think you start in your own backyard and you work your way out. Or there's a relationship. That's one thing about my staff. They've come from Europe, the NBA, from college, from prep school. But I think, you can have an in with, a relationship with a coach or even an agent now. Or, it's funny, like you have players' kids, guys I played with who have sons.
Yeah.
Utah, a lot of people, it's not like I mentioned earlier, people don't grow up dreaming of playing here all over the place. So I think you kind of just start here and build out, get some local kids, and then, just kind of like they've done it in the past. There's been success with, overseas players like Bogut and Pirtle and Hano. So, in California, you had Keith and Andre. So it's kind of like, I don't think it's changed a lot, even though the pool's a lot bigger.
I guess when you're going through the recruitment process, how involved are parents?
It varies now, because now you have agents. I think sometimes the parents are agents. And, I think that's a big thing. Having gone through it for a year, you kind of knew it, but you've lived it for a year. Is just the interaction between kids and their parents is a huge thing. And I'd like there's some that are more involved than others, but it's a big decision. Not that it wasn't 10, 20 years ago, but there's a lot more to it now. So yeah, parents are involved. Like that's one thing Kelvin Sampson, I think, says all the time. He recruits the parents as well.
What is your relationship with AAU basketball like, and the idea of that versus kind of high school?
No, I think it's good. I'm learning it. That's grown too, and I'm kind of amazed at it's hard, the commitment that the coaches and players make, because it's a busy summer. Like, you don't have much of a summer, and I feel bad. But AAU, it's interesting, and now you have the shoe leagues, and it's really been monetized.
Yes.
Let's just say that.
Yes, it has. What do you look forward to most for this season and the team?
You know what? I'm looking forward to getting the guys here. I really like the group, and again, continuity's still underrated, and just getting them here. Looking forward to practices. The 8 weeks we have in the summer. Last year we were, I was still in Dallas in between moves, a lot going on, but now we're got the team, got to get them here, and that's the fun part about it. Like the time you spend with each other, and then at the end of the year, hopefully you have a successful year, and then you can look back on all those little things you did starting in June that got you there, which is, I think, a good feeling.
How do you decide what to work on in practice? It seems like there's a lot to deal with, right? And to prepare for even before you're scouting another team. So how do you decide what is in your practice plan?
Well, I was just talking about it, because we have, what we talked about earlier, the identity of the team. Like, you got to start with that. So after the summer, like, our players, we will have failed if our players don't know exactly what we expect from them. Forget about plays and things like that, but this is how we're going to play. It's interesting because, I think the first steps, we were just talking about it. Like, we've watched a lot of the guys, but I'm going to go back and watch them again, and, individually what they need to work on. And then you kind of just bring it together as a group. like take their strengths and weaknesses and figure out how we're going to play. But and then they have to take that stuff and like we mentioned earlier, when they go play, they have to work on that, because the European guys we have, it's a different game. It's much different, and just managing the expectations. But I'm looking forward to it, because like this, Coach K has the book, A Season is a Lifetime, and that's one of the more fulfilling things is to. And Majerus used to always say, you forget where people start out as, but you remember where they ended up at. But that's part of the journey.
What does that schedule look like? When can they show up to campus, and when do practices start, and then compare that to when the season starts?
Well, we're going to hopefully get everybody in here at the beginning of June. Then we take the first week or so and we get them just onboarded, right? Like they got to find a place to live, get into school. I think then the summer's a big time for, the strength and conditioning, right? Some guys have had injuries, so we kind of try to be thorough like in the NBA. Like, the injury assessment, we get an individual plan for each of them, and then we kind of map it out and then slowly build toward the season. So we'll go for 4 weeks. We'll give them a week off, another 4 weeks, and then August, hopefully kick them all out of here, get away for, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks, and then come back at the end when school starts, and off we go. And I think, the college season's short.
Yeah.
Very short. So you can't have a bad week and then recover, really. In the NBA, you could have a bad 2 weeks and still be okay.
How do you feel about it still being 2 halves in college?
I don't have, strong feelings, but, every other league in the world does 4 quarters. And I'm sure there's other components, but yeah, I think it would make sense to go to 4 quarters. The women do, high schools do, the NBA does, Europe does. Mm-hmm. If you're going to change the number of teams in the tournament, like you should go to 4 quarters.
Yeah, cool. From this past season, what do you think that you absolutely nailed and did really well? And where would you hope to maybe improve upon this second season?
I think the one thing we nailed was, I used to say this all the time last year, not to be in a rush, because we were going to build it, and that starts with off the court, like getting everything organized. And I think we did a good job at the time with the organization. I knew there was going to be plenty to learn, and I learned a lot. And I think not that I didn't know where I wanted to go last year, but it's clearer now. I mean, just going through it for a year is the Big 12. It was tough, but until you go through it, you don't realize how tough it really is.
Yeah. No, it's amazing all the, I guess, time and the pressure that goes into being a coach at any level, and then especially here where you have a lot of people looking at you. So yeah, that's a big deal. When you think through all of the wins, the losses, the injuries, the weights, all of the time that you've put into the game of basketball, and now it's become your career, has it all been worth it? Do you feel like basketball has given you everything that you've wanted out of it?
Oh yeah. No, I say this all the time. It's changed for kids, but all I ever want to do is win a state championship and play in the NCAA, win some games in the NCAA tournament. So that was my dream, and I would have. Everything since then. I've been lucky and fortunate, and basketball is, I owe it a lot. And I will say this though, that for the amount of time that you put into it, that you takes away from your family or friends, is 2 things that make it worth it. And it's winning, and then it's the relationships, because it's a wonderful thing. You just get people from all over from different backgrounds. Like we had a Spanish kid and a kid from Senegal who've lifted weights together all summer who are friends. It's great, right? And then team sports are wonderful. I'll see a teammate, haven't seen him for a couple years, and within 5 minutes, it's like we've been practicing together every day. So the relationships, I think without the relationships, it's hard to say it's worth it.
Yeah. I'm super grateful for your time. I want to wrap up on one thing that I heard you say before that I'd like you to elaborate on a little bit more, and that is you had mentioned that you just wanted to win a state championship, and then you got to the U, and you said something that might have been genius from Majerus is that all of the team seems so present focused. It wasn't the future. It was, let's get through practice. And it was, you're here and then here and now, rather than, oh, I wonder what the future looks like. And I butchered probably how you said it, but the idea is, how do you help kids focus in on what is in front of them and not get distracted by the
whatever it is that you want out of basketball. Like it's a day at a time. And it's interesting. Drew Hansen and Mike Doliak came back and we were at dinner and we were talking about this. And I don't think anybody was dreaming that basketball would have given us what it did. But Doliak had a good line. I'll probably butcher it, and I think we all felt it was, none of us felt we were good enough. Like we didn't want to let be the weak link, right? Nobody wanted to be the guy that let the other 4 guys on the court or the team down, and then that just built to what it was. And then you say it all the time at any level, like winning, like you could be the most selfish guy in the world or the most unselfish, but like when you win, everybody benefits.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is awesome. Thank you for taking this time, and you got a fan here. And I know that everybody that I've talked to from when you got offered the position was excited about that position. It seems like one of the most unanimous, like, this is a good idea positions. And I was actually interviewing Jeff when the news was dropped, and he had forgotten to turn his phone on silent. And so if you go watch the Jeff interview, you'll hear these like dings all through the interview when that happens.
Well, no, I know. There's a lot of people that, including myself, that want to see that place full again. So, it's exciting. So hopefully we don't let them down. Hopefully they can keep that excitement.
No, I agree. Thanks, Coach.
No problem. Thank you.